might not know, but there are ways to control brew time with a pour over. So since the liquid continuously leaves the pour over brewing device, how would you control brewing time? Well, here are 6 ways of controlling brew time. So why do you want to be able to control time in the first place? The longer the liquid stays in contact with the water, the more extraction you'll have. Being able to control brew time gives you another extraction variable to modify, tweak, and change in your cup of coffee. When you are changing water temperature, not only does the temperature itself impact extraction, so a higher temperature equals more extraction, while a lower temperature equals less extraction, the temperature also impacts how fast the liquid flows through the brewing device. I did an experiment keeping all brewing variables the same, but the water temperature. At boiling, the liquid drained at 3 minutes. At 90 degrees Celsius, the liquid drained at 3 minutes and 35 seconds. At 80 degrees Celsius, the liquid drained at 4 minutes and 10 seconds. So I was using a bag of pre-ground beans for all of these experiments, so I couldn't really tweak that variable with these beans. However, finer grinds leads to a longer brew time. Coarser grinds leads to a shorter brew time. And what I want to say here is that I would stay away from using either grind size or water temperature to impact brew time. And if you are changing these 2 variables, they will already impact extraction in their own way. So you don't want it to also change brew time because it will probably create this unpredictable extraction level in your cup of coffee that you didn't expect. But hey, maybe you wanted that unpredictable cup of coffee. Who knows? The amount of coffee and water you use will increase or decrease your brewing time. The more water you need to use, the longer it'll take to flow through the brewer, and vice versa. I've made a video in the past talking about scaling up or down your brewing recipe because that's quite an hassle, and if you want to learn more about that, you can check that out here. I've noticed that my successful cups of coffee kind of follow this rule of thumb. For every 100 milliliters you brew with, brew time should be around 1 minute to 1 minute and 30 seconds. So if I am brewing with 300 milliliters of water, it should take around 3 minutes to 4.5 minutes. The filter you use will also impact brew time because the filter's pores allow more or less liquid to flow through. Even within the specific materials, there is a wide range of brewing times. Story time. Back in 2018, the Hario V60 filters got a cosmetic tab added to its filter. Initially, we thought it was just a decorative addition, but as time went by and people were brewing with these new tabbed filters, people realized that the filters themselves and the paper had a functional change. Somewhere along the line, the paper was being processed differently. This increased the brew time significantly. So even though the paper looks identical to the naked eye, they have a totally different brew time. Pour-over brewers are all uniquely designed. For example, the Hario V60 promotes fast flow with its inner ribs and thin paper filters. On the flip side, the Chemex has a slow flow with the seal it creates with the filter and the thick paper filters themselves. Your pour technique also matters. All of these techniques I'll be talking about now are performed with a gooseneck kettle for accuracy and control. In the world of pour-overs, there is much debate between pulse pour and continuous pour. In my opinion, both techniques work well, but one needs to know how it impacts the brew, and in the specific case, brew time. Pulse pours lead to a longer brew time, and from my understanding, the fines have time to settle down between pours, slowing down the liquid flow. I did an experiment keeping all the brewing variables but the pour intervals the same. With a continuous pour, the liquid drained at 3 minutes. With a pulse pour doing 50 grams of bloom, then 75 grams times 3 with 20-second intervals, the liquid drained at 4 minutes and 10 seconds. The two main pouring patterns are circular pour and center pour. I did an experiment keeping all the brewing variables the same, but the pour pattern. Circular pour took around 3 minutes. Center pour took around 3 minutes and 20 seconds. The times do not tell the whole story because 20 seconds is not a lot of time. The center pour had many grinds that were high and dry, which caused extreme over-extraction. Does this mean that center pour is a worse pouring technique? Not really. It's all about how you apply it. If you have a thin filter with a dark roast, the center pour becomes the osmotic technique, which you might know as Japanese slow pour coffee with big blooms. Here are two side-by-side coffee beds. I did a center pour with the same speed for both of these cups. The only difference was that I used a thinner fabric that allowed for the water to flow quicker through the brewer in this one. Now for the 2 pointers you should avoid at all costs when doing a pour over. They have to do with 2 aspects, fast versus slow pours and a high versus low pour. Pouring slowly keeps the agitation to a minimum, which keeps the brew time consistent. I did an experiment keeping all brewing variables the same, but the pour speed. A slow pour took 3 minutes. A fast pour took 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Pouring low also keeps the agitation to a minimum, which keeps the brew time consistent. I did an experiment keeping, yet again, all the variables the same, but the pour height. A low pour took 3 minutes. A high pour from 15 centimeters took 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Now that's a huge difference. So avoid pouring fast and high as they increase agitation to a degree where the brew time goes out of hand. The pour over is a craft one can constantly improve and refine. I've shown you some methods to control brew time with pour overs. Now here's the caveat. Each new coffee bean you brew with will have a different brew time. It sucks, but it's the truth. A coffee bean's roast level, roast date, and density will all impact brew time. With that said, it becomes a constant game of adapting to the beans and the brewer and setup you have. So unlike other variables with a brewing device where you just change one setting, like grinding finer or coarser, brewing time for pour overs is a whole nother beast. And if you have any questions about this beast, ask those questions down below. If you want to check out how to brew with a pour over device like the Hario V60, click right over here for that brewing guide. And if you want to learn about how coffee filters not only impact brew time, but also the taste of your coffee, check that video out right over here. I'll see you there.